So now that the 2025 NFL draft is over, I wanted to put every single NFL team into a tier list for the 2025 season. So we do have a bunch of different tiers in which I'm going to throw these teams into. We have Super Bowl favorites, Super Bowl contenders, pretty self-explanatory, right? Like I think you're going to be one of the top teams, at least in the betting markets, or what everybody's going to take to win the Super Bowl, and you got that caliber of roster. Super Bowl contenders, that could just basically be last year's version of maybe the Buffalo Bills going into the year. Playoff teams, also pretty self-explanatory. I think you're going to make the playoffs in some way, shape, or form. Maybe it's a division, maybe it's going to be a wild card spot. Potential wild cards, yeah, you're going to be in that hunt graphic all year long. Young but intriguing. I don't think you're making the playoffs, but this is more so just a fun year to see what you have right now. And maybe you could be this year's version of the Washington Commanders or 2 years ago version of the Houston Texans. And then, yeah, we have number one pick contention. I think you're going to be one of the worst teams in the league. For some teams, that may be okay because they do have some young talent, but for some teams, it's not going to be okay. So let's start things off with the Dallas Cowboys, who addressed offensive line on the night of the draft. They drafted Tower Booker in the first round. On day 2, they got Savone Revel, which I loved out of East Carolina. If he could be fully healthy next year as a corner, because you don't know about Trayvon Diggs' health. They also got Donovan Ezeraku on day 2, which I thought was a steal. I didn't love Jaden Blue as their running back. I thought they could have gone, like maybe if they ended up getting Trayvon Henderson or Keyshawn Judkins or Dylan Sampson, Caleb Johnson, one of those guys would have excited me a little bit more, even RJ Harvey. I do think Dallas is going to be a playoff team next year. Obviously, they were one of the worst, or not worst, but more disappointing teams in 2024 because Dak Prescott and a bunch of guys got hurt. But you got Micah Parsons on that D-line with Ezeraku and Oseo Odigizua, who you re-signed this offseason. I would have liked if they maybe added another receiver as well, because there's not a lot of talent outside of CeeDee Lamb. We'll see how consistent Jake Ferguson can be for this team this year. But if Dak is back healthy, where he was a top 3 MVP candidate just 2 years ago, I think the Cowboys are going to be a wild card team. I don't think they're going to win the division. It's going to be a good NFC East this year for sure if the Giants are better, because I do expect the Cowboys to be better and should be a playoff team next year. So next up, we have the New England Patriots. They're pretty much young but intriguing. They had one of the worst rosters last year, but they really addressed the offensive line throughout the draft, taking Will Campbell with the 4th overall pick. And if you weren't hyped up about it as a Pats fan, hearing that interview where his job is just to protect Drake May, and he was so passionate about that, you gotta love that selection. They also picked up Stephon Diggs this offseason, Milton Williams, Carlton Davis, and got Drake May some more weapons and protection on the non-first round picks. With Trayvon Henderson from Ohio State, I love that because I wasn't really sold on Ramondre Stevenson next year. You add Kyle Williams and Jared Wilson, the top center in this draft out of Georgia. I love them getting Braden Swinson late in this draft as well. They could be a potential wildcard team if Drake May takes a step, if he can really work well with Josh McDaniels as the offensive coordinator. I wouldn't expect them to be like in that hunt, like in the hunt graphic late in the year where they may be like 6-8, but they could still make the playoffs, something like that. But I do think they're a very young, intriguing team. Who knows though? If Drake May can have a monster year too, they could take a noticeable leap. I think the Jets are also, I think they're a potential wildcard team. Like, I think this team is still a little bit more well-balanced than the Pats, but they're not far apart. It's just a big year on Justin Fields because he's going to be probably inheriting the best offensive line of his career. They drafted Armand Membu on day 1 of the NFL draft. They have Ashanu, Tippmann, Simpson, and Vera Tucker. They have a good offensive line. They didn't move on from Breece Hall. They drafted Arian Smith and Mason Taylor, a wide receiver and tight end, to give Fields another weapon. And I really like them drafting Ezra Thomas as well. He's not going to be as good as DJ Reed next year, but it just adds to that secondary. We'll see how the defensive line is going to look next year. I do think this roster, like I said, is a little bit better than the Pats on paper, but the Pats, I think, are okay with a non-playoff season because of Drake May. They just care about his development going forward. For the Jets, they may have a little bit more pressure on them, but all 3 of these teams have a first-year head coach. For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think they're a playoff team as well. I mean, the NFC South is still one of the weaker, if not the weakest division in the NFL. Maybe we see the Falcons look better next year. Maybe we see the Panthers look better, but I do think the Bucs are going to be in line to win another division crown. I love their draft as well, getting Emeka Buka in the 1st round, Jacob Harris, and I love just the Benjamin Morrison pick as well. I would have liked maybe a little bit more of an edge rusher early in the draft, but they did sign Hassan Reddick this offseason. We'll see how Godwin's health is going to look. Kind of scares me a little bit that they took Ibuka in the 1st round, but I do think the Bucs are going to be a playoff team. I don't think I like their offseason enough where they're a Super Bowl contender in my opinion, but I do think they're going to win the NFC South next year. For the Titans, I really like their draft. And how could you not, right? Like, they're picking at the top of every round. They land Cam Ward, the best quarterback in this draft. And this defense was abysmal last year. And they get Oladipo in the second round. They get Kevin Winston, one of my favorite safety prospects, in the third round. I like Io Maynard late in the draft. Like, we'll see how Gunnar Helm is for this team. I think the Titans are going to be one of those teams where they're going to be number one pick contention, and then they can maybe trade out of number one for a haul, because I do believe they found their franchise quarterback in Cam Ward. I think he's going to have a productive rookie year. I don't know if this team has enough young depth where I like them as much as the Patriots, because their free agency class was okay. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of Dan Moore, but Cam Ward should have a solid wide receiver one in Calvin Ridley, two good running backs, and an offensive line unit they've invested in over the last few years. But I do think they're still going to be one of the worst teams in the AFC. You never know, though. Like, their division isn't great on paper. Maybe there's a chance they can have a productive 2025, but I think more so they're just competitive in games. Cam Ward shows the flashes that he could be a franchise quarterback. He's got Warren Moon's number now, and then they could end up getting the number one overall pick, and then maybe they could trade down for an absolute haul when we get there in that 2026 draft. So next up, we have the Detroit Lions. Yeah, they're still a Super Bowl contender. I think I'm going to put two AFC teams and two NFC teams in the Super Bowl favorites, so I may still bump them up at the end of this. But I honestly think I'm going to have them in Super Bowl favorites. Like, I think it's going to be them, and you could probably guess the other team there in the NFC. And I know they had a disappointing divisional round exit. They didn't win a playoff game last year because they got the bye, and then they got upsetted by the Commanders. They did also lose a ton of coaches this offseason. They lost a lot of assistants. They lost Aaron Glenn to the Jets. They lost Ben Johnson to the Chicago Bears. They played arguably, no, it's not arguably, it is the best division in the NFL next year. I also didn't love their draft. Tyreek Williams in the first round, I was iffy on. Tate Ratledge in the second, I thought was great. But trading two future thirds to move up to take Isaac Teslaw, I don't really know how I feel about that. I still think they're probably a Super Bowl favorite because they have so much talent as it is, and they should still have one of the best offenses in the NFL, even with no Ben Johnson there, just because of their duos at the running back position. Jared Goff fits the system very well. The offensive line is still solid. I know they lost Kevin Zeitler this offseason, and the defense should still be really good. They re-signed Kirby Joseph to a long-term extension. I know they did end up losing Carlton Davis, but they replaced him with a better corner, in my opinion, DJ Reed. I still think they're going to be up there this year in the just whole NFL contention. Now, here is another offseason winner. It happened last year, and the Bears, I mean, they were so competitive last year. It's not like they were one of the worst teams in the league. They take Colston Loveland at 10. A little bit of a shocker. They end up taking Luther Burden in the second round with Rome Odunze and DJ Moore there. Now they have three solid receivers. They take Trapillo, also the tackle. I like them taking a chance on Shamar Turner because of the upside he could bring you on day two. I would have liked if there was like another running back added to this team with a little bit more excitement. Like, oh my God, Trayvon Henderson on this team would have been electric if they were able to take him in this draft. I mean, for the Bears, like, do I want to put them in playoff teams? I can't put too many teams there because I'm probably going to have a lot of NFC North teams up there, but this Bears offense is so good. Caleb Williams looked really promising. I know maybe he didn't live up to the expectations, but I'm still very high on Caleb Williams going into year number 2. He has all the weapons in the world. He's one of the best offensive-minded head coaches, and the defense is still solid. Like, it's by far from being a bad defense that it was a couple years ago. I think they're a tier above the Jets right now, but if I have too many teams, like if I have more than, 7 teams here in the NFC, I may have to bump down them down to potential wild card. I think the Colts are also a potential wild card team as well in the year 2025. I hope that the NFC and the AFC, or if the NFC can close the gap to competition of the AFC, but this is a big year for Anthony Richardson, right? Or maybe it's going to be Daniel Jones. I mean, that'd be a bad thing because that means Anthony Richardson did not win out the quarterback job in camp or got benched, but they draft Tyler Warren. They have the offensive weapons over there. They were active in free agency, but they did lose a little bit of talent. They added to that secondary, which should be one of the more improved secondary units in the league next year. I don't think they're like a young and intriguing team. I do think they could be a potential wild card team all year long. The Rams, I think they're a playoff team as well. I also kind of want to just bump up the Rams to the Super Bowl contenders. I know their conditions weren't great in the game, but they did give the Eagles probably their toughest test in the 2024 playoffs. And I thought they had a weird draft as well. I like them trading down, and they got Atlanta's pick next year, but they used it on Terrence Ferguson, the tight end. I don't know if that was the biggest position of need. They drafted Jacarius Hunter. I don't know if they also need no running back, but this was a really good roster last year. Matthew Stafford is still a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. They've also one of the best head coaches in the league as well. And the defense is young and getting better and better because they aced the 2024 draft. And they also signed Devontae Adams this offseason. I know Cooper Kupp is no longer there. I do think they are a Super Bowl contender team if I were going to have a couple here. San Francisco 49ers, Do I think they're like a tough team to rank? Because can you tell me that the Bears are going to be better than the 49ers next year? I don't know, because the 49ers were so disappointing last year, and they lost a lot of talent this offseason. They added Michael Williams in the draft, and they were able to make a ton of selections here. Looks like Malik Mustafa may be hurt to start off the 2025 season. We're going to see what that Brock Purdy extension is going to look like. But honestly, like, they did lose a ton of talent. How is Brandon Ayuk going to look coming off the torn ACL? They no longer have Deebo Samuel there. I mean, can Ricky Pearsall step up for this team? How is Christian McCaffrey going to look with the offensive line losing some talent this offseason like Aaron Banks and Jalen Moore? I know they were in like long-term starters over there. I think I'm going to throw them in playoff teams for now, but I think there's a chance I may bump them. Like, I don't know. I think it's really tough to figure out who you like the most out of Dallas, Chicago, and San Fran. I want to ask you guys that. Like, let me know in the comments. Best team out of those three next year. Eagles, reigning Super Bowl champions. They're easily the Super Bowl favorites in the NFC and maybe in the whole NFL next year. Because usually when you win the Super Bowl, you're going to have a lot of talent that's going to leave in free agency. And that happened with Josh Sweat to Arizona and Milton Williams to the Patriots, or even Mekhi Becton to the Chargers. But man, I love their draft. Getting Makuba in the second round, getting Jahad Campbell in the first round. You re-sign Zach Bond, you pay Saquon Barkley. They're still going to have one of the best offensive line units because they did take a flyer on Kenyon Green. They did extend Cam Jurgens. So yeah, this should be the favorite to come out of the NFC next year. And they kind of steamrolled through the playoffs last year. They are one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NFL. I think the Raiders, I don't know. Maybe they're going to be a potential wild card team. They did draft Ashton Jeanty, a position of need. I really like them getting Jack Bech on day 2. Geno Smith is going to be their best quarterback they have had probably since Derek Carr's best years over there. I wonder how that secondary is going to look. I do like them getting Darren Porter. They have arguably the best tight end, and it just feels like now we got some smart minds in Tampa Bay. Chip Kelly, Pete Carroll, Tom Brady. It should be exciting over there in Vegas. I don't know if they're like I still think they're young and intriguing with the offensive line, but like Myers is getting up there. Geno Smith's getting up there in age. I mean, Max Crosby, hopefully Tyree Wilson and like Christian Wilkins can be healthy and break out next year, more so Wilson there. I think they could be a potential wild card team, but I may have to drop them down. We'll see like if somebody gets dropped down here. I think Green Bay, man, like, I want to put them in playoff teams as well. They were a playoff team last year. Jordan Love is still better than some of the quarterbacks that I have in this tier. Like, I do think he's better than Brock Purdy. He's better than Caleb Williams, at least right now. And the Packers had an interesting draft. They finally drafted a wide receiver in the first round. I thought their free agency was also a little bit questioning because they ended up paying a lot of money to Aaron Banks, who we'll see how he's going to look as a full-time starter there in Green Bay. They paid a lot of money to Robert Hobbs, Nate Hobbs. I know they're going to have some injuries on the offense to start the season. We'll see how Matthew Golden's going to look there with Reed. I don't know if I love their secondary next year. I'm going to throw them in playoff teams, but there's a chance they could go up or down. Like, I really got to figure out this tier at the end of it because I can't have this many NFC teams. Because, yeah, I think the Washington Commanders, they were a Super Bowl contender last year. They made it to the NFC Championship game, and they traded for Deebo Samuel and Laramie Tunsil this offseason. I love them getting Josh Connerly in the first round. We're fully protecting Jaden Daniels in year 2. And I really like them adding Trey Amos in the second round, who I thought could have been a first-round corner also. And now we're building out that cornerback room. Hopefully, we can get one more good year out of Marshawn Lattimore, maybe a year 2 productive year out of Sam Ristel. And I think this could be like a really good defense there in Washington. You bring back Bobby Wagner. You've got a good head coach in Dan Quinn, a good offensive coordinator in Cliff Kingsbury. I think they're like, they got to be here, right? They got to be in Super Bowl contenders because I think they got better this offseason and they were in the NFC Championship game last year. I think the Cardinals are a potential wild card team as well. I mean, it's kind of now or never for Jonathan Gannon, for Monty Ossenfort, and Kyler Murray there in Arizona. I did like their draft a lot, though, because they needed to get better on the defensive side of the field, and they added Josh Sweat in free agency. You added Walter Nolan in the first round, and I think you got a steal with Will Johnson in the second round. But I think these tiers are going to have to sort itself out, and I think every team in the NFC West is going to be competitive next year. There might be more, I think, good teams in the NFC West, but the top part is better in the AFC, or there are more good teams in the NFC, excuse me, but more like better top teams in the AFC. The Steelers, I think they're just a potential wild card team right now. I mean, who's their quarterback next year? Yeah, it's probably going to be Aaron Rodgers, but if it's not, it's going to be Mason Rudolph, Skylar Thompson, and Will Howard. I don't know. Yeah, maybe they're going to go 9-8. Tomlin's never been under 500 in Pittsburgh. And they have a good roster outside of quarterback. They could have added another corner this offseason. They just added Darius Slay. But I like their draft for all things considered because you got Derek Carman in the first round. You ended up trading your second rounder for DK Metcalf, who could be a wide receiver 1. You took Caleb Johnson in the third round. You added Jack Sawyer. You added Yaya Black. And I think this could be a good team over there in Pittsburgh. Hopefully Roman Wilson could be something for them next year. They didn't trade away George Pickens. It's just they don't have a quarterback, so I don't know if I could throw them in the playoffs. But maybe I will because they kind of do make the playoffs every year and they just get smoked in the wildcard weekend, and I do think they're better than the Jets, the Colts, and the Raiders. So maybe there's a chance I drop them. We'll see. For the Bills, they are a Super Bowl. If I'm gonna put, I don't know, maybe I'm not gonna put 4 teams in Super Bowl favorites. Maybe I'm just gonna do one in each conference. So I know it'll be chalky who I decide, but I think the Bills, Super Bowl contenders, they were very close to making it to the Super Bowl last year. We had an electric game against the Chiefs, but I just can't put them in the favorites because they've not proven to me or anybody that they could beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, even though Josh Allen just won MVP. I really like their draft. And I thought with all things considered financially this offseason, they did well. I think Josh Palmer is going to be great, kind of in that Gabe Davis role over there in Buffalo, and Allen is going to have weapons next year. It's just TBD what that running game is going to look like. Are they going to pay James Cook? Yeah, the Saints are going to be a number 1 pick contention, so I don't know who this quarterback's going to be. If looks like that Derek Carr is going to be hurt to start off the year. So is it going to be Tyler Shuck? Is it going to be Jake Haener, Spencer Rattler? I mean, or we're just going to see more Taysom Hill this year. Chris Olave hopefully could be healthy throughout the year. Will they get another good year out of Alvin Kamara? I like them drafting Kelvin Banks, but I thought everything else was a little bit head scratching in the draft. I'm surprised they didn't take a chance on Shedeur Sanders. I think the Atlanta Falcons are a potential wild card team. I kind of want to put them in young, but intriguing, maybe, honestly, just because Michael Penix is going to get his first full year as a starting quarterback. Bijan's young, Drake London's young, Kyle Pitts is still on this roster. Darnell Mooney was a great pickup last year, and I like them adding James Pierce and Jalen Walker. I didn't love what it costed to add James Pierce, but I thought Xavier Watts was a great selection as well, and they added some guys on the defensive side of the field this offseason. You got Jesse Bates there. You got AJ Terrell. I think they're a young team. It's really, I think this year is about Michael Penix, like it should be for Drake May in the young but intriguing. I think the Seahawks are probably a potential wildcard team. I do think you're going a little bit down in talent from Geno Smith to Sam Darnold, but he is a lot younger. I love them taking a chance on Jalen Milroe. He was one of my favorite quarterbacks in this draft, not named Cam Ward. And I thought they did very well in the draft also. Like, I really love the addition of Nick Ward in the second round, and you needed to address the interior on the offensive line, and you drafted Gray Zabel in the first round, and you took Elijah Arroyo, who could be your best tight end in quite some time there in Seattle. So adding Cooper Kupp this offseason, it's a big year for Mike McDonald, and we'll see how Sam Darnold looks in his first year there with Clint Kubiak. I do think they're going to be a potential wildcard team. Houston should be a playoff team for sure. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender, but they've won the AFC South the last 2 seasons, and they won a playoff game last year when a lot of people were taking the Chargers in that game. Yeah, you lose Laremy Tunsil this offseason, you traded him away, but I thought they did a good job in the NFL draft. I mean, taking both Iowa State receivers was a little bit interesting when you have Berrios and Hutchinson and Kirk and Nico on your team right now. I know Dell's going to be hurt next year. They did take Ariante Ursary. I think this O-line could still be a little bit iffy next year, but they just play in a weaker division. I do think they're going to win the AFC South. The Bengals should be a playoff team as well because they got Joe Burrow, you got Jamar Chase, and the defense just can't be as bad as it was last year. We'll see how Shamar Stewart is going to look for this team. But yeah, you have a top 3 quarterback, top 4 quarterback in the league. You arguably have the best receiver and the best option as a number 2 in this league. And Chase Brown was very exciting in his first full year as a starter last year. I think the Broncos, oh man, this is tough. Oh man, the defense is so good because they didn't need to draft Jahdae Barrett, and they did. And that cornerback room is going to be great with Riley Moss and Patrick Surtain, who just went depoy. The safety duo, Brandon Jones and Tuise Hufanga. You added Dre Greenlaw this offseason as well. Man, this Broncos defense is really good. I would have liked if they added maybe a better running back, but I think RJ Harvey could be the workhorse for them this year, or maybe another receiving threat. We'll see if Pat Bryant can be anything for them next year. I think I'm going to throw them in potential wild card because I'm a little skeptical on a Bo Nix improvement next year, but if he's the same guy, that could still bring them into the playoffs. I mean, the Baltimore Ravens are up there with the Buffalo Bills as the 2 Super Bowl contenders here in the AFC. Yeah, it's pretty much who could beat Mahomes in the playoffs, and Lamar has never done it, at least in the playoffs, and he's been somebody that's been in MVP conversation each of the last 5 seasons. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I like their draft for sure. We let Malachi Starks fall to them. They bring back Ronnie Stanley for agency. They also get Mike Green in the second round, but there's a reason why he fell to the second round. We'll see if there's going to be some allegations with him this season. They also drafted a kicker because who knows what's going on with Justin Tucker and his allegations as well. But they have one of the best offenses in the league, and they are definitely a Super Bowl contender. I think Miami is a potential wild card also. I just can't fully commit to them, knowing Tua with his health concerns. I didn't love their draft either, but I do think they addressed a ton of needs. It's going to be a big year for Mike McDaniel over there in Miami, and I do think there's a chance they could finish 4th in this division somehow, but they could also finish 2nd. I don't see them finishing 1st. Minnesota, I do also think is a potential wildcard team. I think you're going down in talent from Sam Darnold to J.J. McCarthy. It's a big year for him, but he's going to have a ton of weapons over there. They draft Donovan Jackson. You signed Will Fries and Ryan Kelly. You have one of the best receivers in the league. You have a good number 2 in Jordan Addison. You have a good tight end if he's healthy in TJ Hawkinson. You have a good running back in Aaron Jones. And with a good O-line, JJ McCarthy's in a very good spot with a good offensive-minded head coach. They were active in free agency on the defensive side of the field as well, but I just think it's a gauntlet over there in the NFC. So I'm going to have to really, I think, break up this tier by the end of it. Cleveland, I think they're going to be number one pick contention. This is the most comical QB room I've ever seen, and I really hope it works out for them. But you have Deshaun Watson, who I think we're putting the stamp on the worst trade in maybe sports history, not just NFL history. You have Kenny Pickett, who they traded for this offseason, actually gave up an asset for Kenny Pickett in draft picks, and Kenny Pickett's not great on a draft pick. He may get cut before the year starts because you want Joe Flacco on your team as a veteran, and then you have two guys that you drafted this year, but I think you drafted them out of order. You got Shedeur Sanders, which I think for the value, that is a steal because he should have gone in the second, third, or fourth rounds. I don't know why you drafted Dillon Gabriel when you could have taken an offensive lineman or maybe somebody on the defensive side of the field. But I do like them adding two solid running backs in Dylan Sampson and Keyshawn Judkins, but I do think they're going to be one of the worst teams this year, unless there's somehow a Kirk Cousins team, which I don't think they're going to be at this point. And obviously getting Mason Graham was huge for them. The Chiefs, yep, they are a Super Bowl favorite. They were in it last year and have pretty much been in it every year for the last like 7+ years outside of that Bengals season. And yeah, they're going to be up there. They had Josh Simmons in round one, something they definitely needed to do to protect Patrick Mahomes, who did not have a good offensive line. You paid Jalen Moore. And then I also love them getting Omar Narman-Bot in the second round. I thought that was really good value for him falling to the end of the second round. He could be a good defensive tackle learning from Chris Jones as well. And then the LA Chargers, like, they were a playoff team last year, and you'd like to think that they got better this offseason. So right now I have about 7 teams here in my NFC, or excuse me, my AFC playoff structure. I have the Steelers, the Texans, the Bengals, and the Chargers as 4, 5, 6, and then 7. So we'll see if I'm going to add anybody else, which I don't think I will. I think the Panthers are young but intriguing. Like I said about the Patriots and the Falcons, everything this year is on the quarterback in Bryce Young. You have a good running back, and then you drafted a good wide receiver one. I love them getting Ted McMillan. I think a position of need, and you finally got Bryce Young, that big target that you can throw to in the end zone, and now Leggett and Coker become more complementary pieces for this team. You've invested into offensive line as well, and yeah, it's a big year for Dave Canales' development with Bryce Young there as your hopeful franchise quarterback. I think the Jags are also a potential wildcard team as well. Like I said, I'm going to fill out some of these tiers, but I do like them adding Travis Hunter this offseason. I know you let go of Christian Kirk in a trade and Evan Ingram you cut, but I thought them getting Travis Hunter was amazing for Trevor Lawrence, who's also going to have another big year coming up with Liam Cohen now as his head coach. And I think the Giants, oh man, like, do I think they're a potential wildcard team? I love their draft. I really did. Outside of the Jackson Dart pick. I'm not a big fan of Dart in a trade up there into the first round, but I love them getting Abdul Carter. Darius Alexander, Cam Scatabo is going to be really fun with Tyrone Tracy in the backfield, and Russell Wilson is going to be your starting quarterback. So this is what I got right now. I mean, that's a lot of potential wildcard teams here. I don't know if I want to drop any of these guys specifically, but for my NFC playoff picture, I have 4 here. I think if I was going to drop a Super Bowl contender, I think I would take the Rams over the Commanders in a playoff game right now. I think I would, but that's okay. Like, the Commanders are still up and coming, even though they were just in the NFC Championship game. So that leaves me having to drop 2 teams here. And I think I know which ones I'm going to do. I think I'm going to drop the 49ers. I think there's too many question marks with the depth on this team right now, especially losing a lot of talent this offseason. And then I think I may drop the Bears because you never know. I mean, this team is still young. And I think I'm going to drop a couple of these teams to young but intriguing. I'm going to drop the Colts because it's intriguing about Anthony Richardson. How is he going to look with all these weapons there? And they're still a young team. It's not like they're losing their window right now. Maybe like the Steelers are with Hayward, Watt, and Minka getting up there in age. I think the Giants are young but intriguing. I know they're not young at quarterback outside of Jackson Dart, but I do think the rest of this team is still up and coming as well with Carter and Alexander and Scatabo and Tracy and Neighbors and Phillips and all these guys they've drafted over the last few years. That could be fun for this team. So yeah, we do have a lot of potential wildcard teams. I think I could also drop the Raiders here to young but intriguing because outside of like Myers and Geno Smith and maybe Christian Wilkins, like, they're still fairly young on this team with talent, and hopefully Ashton Judson and Bowers, like, they're just going to be so many fun weapons to watch there in Vegas this year. Like, the Cardinals and the Jaguars are such wild cards this year as well. Like, how will Kyler look? How is Trevor Lawrence going to look? How is JJ McCarthy going to look? I thought about throwing them in young but intriguing, but I want to give them the respect after how good they were last year. So yeah, I think the toughest was not putting either San Fran or Chicago in the playoff teams, like, definitively. And I did have Dallas there, which I think could have some responses in the comments for sure. And maybe the Steelers, but I don't know if I can confidently say that the Broncos are better than the Steelers. I know the Steelers beat them last year, but Bo Nix looks so different than he did early in the year, and the Steelers don't have a quarterback. So if the Steelers do not add Aaron Rodgers, yeah, they're getting dropped this year, but I'm going to make this assuming they are going to add Aaron Rodgers. And that is going to be my tier list for the 2025 NFL season. Let me know what you think down below. Drop a thumbs up if you guys did enjoy. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already. Maybe drop in a way too early 2026 mock draft. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.